The sky burned when the ship fell. Flames lit the heavens like a dying star. Elias had barely survived the crash. His ship now, a shattered skeleton, lay, half buried in red soil. Smoke curled into the air, carrying the scent of metal and ash. He limped away from the wreckage, his left arm broken, ribs cracked. Blood ran down his leg, but his eyes stayed sharp. The planet was wild, unknown. Alive. Thick jungle trees surrounded him. Their leaves shimmered in colors he had never seen before. Insects buzzed like electric wires. Creatures watched from the dark. But Elias didn't fear them. He feared something else. Silence. No rescue signal. No voice on the radio. No other humans. Just him, alone on a savage world. He built a shelter near a cliff, using the ship's remains. A metal wall, a roof patched with torn fabric. A fire pit he guarded like treasure. Days passed. He hunted small animals, gathered fruit from trees. Pain stayed with him like a shadow, but he never cried. He couldn't afford to. Then, on the 6th night, everything changed. The jungle was quiet. Too quiet. No wind, no chirping bugs. Just the crackle of his fire. Then came the sound, a soft cry, high-pitched, frightened. It wasn't human, but it was close. It sounded like a baby. Elias stood slowly, grabbed the sharpened rod he used as a weapon. His boots crunched over the soil as he stepped into the dark. He followed the sound, deeper into the jungle. Every step surrounded by shadows. Then he saw it, under a tree, shivering. A small creature, no bigger than a cat. Its skin was dark gray, with faint blue patterns that pulsed slowly. Its eyes glowed pale silver. It was thin, fragile, starving. Elias lowered his weapon. The creature didn't run. It stared at him, unmoving. He knelt down, ignoring the pain in his leg. From his pocket, he pulled a piece of dried meat and held it out. The creature sniffed, crawled closer. It ate from his hand. And then, to his surprise, it curled into a ball beside his foot, like it had chosen him. Elias looked around. No sign of a mother. No nest. Nothing. He could leave it. He should. But something in his chest stopped him. He wrapped it in his old jacket and carried it back to the shelter. From that night forward, they were no longer alone. He named it Nyx. It was quiet, curious, watchful. It never spoke, but it learned fast. He taught it how to eat, how to drink, how to stay warm. He made a small bed beside his own. He even shared his water when the rains failed. As days turned into weeks, Nyx began to grow, faster than anything he had ever seen. Its legs became strong, its claws sharper, but its eyes stayed soft when it looked at him. He trained it gently, used food and kindness. When it made mistakes, he never shouted. He treated it like a child. One night, Elias sat by the fire, sharpening a blade from the ship's wreckage. Nyx curled beside him, purring softly. He looked up at the stars. They were different here, colder, distant, but he smiled. "This planet may kill me," he whispered, "but at least I won't die alone." What he didn't know was that they weren't alone. Not anymore. High above, hidden in the treetops, someone was watching. A tall figure with silver markings on her face, eyes sharp as a blade, her skin the color of storm clouds, her hair braided with feathers and bone. She was a princess, daughter of the ruling clan, heir to an ancient tribe that ruled this land for generations. She had watched the human from the day his ship fell, studied his every move. But tonight, she had seen something that changed everything. The creature he raised, the one he called Nyx, it wasn't just some jungle beast. It wasn't a lost animal. It was a weapon, an ancient predator, born from blood and fury, banned by the tribe centuries ago, and now, raised by a human, trained, loved. The princess narrowed her eyes. She had a choice, to make. And Elias had no idea the war he was about to walk into. Nyx was changing. The once tiny creature Elias rescued was no longer small. Its limbs grew stronger, muscles thicker. It could leap from rock to tree like lightning. Its silver eyes now burned with quiet power. But what made Nyx truly dangerous was not its speed, not its claws. It was how it listened, how it learned, like a child hungry for every lesson Elias could give. Elias had never trained a creature before. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a scientist. He was just a mechanic. Someone who fixed broken things. And now, here he was, trying to raise something that could tear him in half in seconds. But he wasn't afraid, because Nyx never showed anger, only trust, only loyalty. Every morning, Elias taught Nyx how to track without being seen, how to move through trees without sound, how to avoid traps, how to protect not destroy. They trained with sticks, stones, and hand signs. No words, just connection. Nyx understood. It always understood. And Elias began to wonder, was Nyx just an animal, or something more? Far above, hidden among thick jungle vines, the tribal princess watched. Her name was Kayla, born of the bloodline of warriors, promised to lead the tribe one day, sworn to protect her people. She had studied the old stories. She knew what Nyx was, the black spawn, a beast once used to wipe out entire villages. A creature of war, so deadly that her ancestors hunted every last one, and yet, this one did not kill. It played. It slept beside the fire. It leaned its head on the human's shoulder. It obeyed. She had never seen such a thing, and the human, this Elias, was not like the warrior she knew. He spoke to Nyx gently, shared his food, protected it like family. Kayla's world had rules. Her people believed only strength and control could bring peace. Love was weakness. Mercy was danger. But Elias had tamed a monster. With kindness. Her heart began to doubt, and that doubt was dangerous. 2 nights later, the tribe's war leader, Kayla's cousin, climbed up beside her tree perch. He was tall, covered in black paint, his voice low and bitter. "You've seen enough," he said. "That thing must die, and the human with it." Kayla did not answer. She looked down again at the camp, at the human mending a broken pot with glue made from tree sap, at the creature gently curling its tail around a fallen feather. "They are not what the stories told us," she whispered. Her cousin growled. "You forget your duty." "No," Kayla said. "I remember it too well." And with that, she vanished into the trees. That night, the jungle stirred. Elias was working by the fire when Nyx's head snapped up. Its ears twitched, its muscles tensed. Before Elias could move, Nyx launched into the trees, fast, silent, gone. Then came the scream. One of the tribe's scouts, crushed, thrown to the ground. A second one tried to run, but Nyx stood in his path. It snarled, lunged, but stopped, just inches from the man's neck. It stared into his eyes, then turned away. It let him go. When Nyx returned to the camp, its claws were clean. It sat by the fire. Calm. Elias looked into its glowing eyes. "Why didn't you kill them?" he asked softly. Nyx blinked once, then looked toward the trees, toward the one who had watched for days. From the high branches, Kayla stood frozen. She had ordered the attack, to see the beast's nature, to test the human's bond. And now she knew. This was not a pet, not a monster, not even a weapon. It was something new, something dangerous, not because of what it could do, but because of what it had learned. Mercy. Kayla made a decision that would change her tribe forever. She climbed down from the trees and walked alone into the firelight of Elias's camp. He stood when he saw her, holding a tool in one hand, his face full of quiet strength. Nyx didn't growl, didn't move. It only watched. Kayla looked Elias in the eye. "You don't know what you've done," she said. Elias tilted his head. "Maybe not. but I know I did it for the right reason. She stepped closer. Her heart beat fast. She had never stood so close to a human before. I am Kayla, daughter of the Flame, princess of the Wild Blood tribe. Elias nodded. I'm Elias, pilot of a ship that doesn't fly anymore. A pause. Then a small, quiet smile between them. But far away, war drums began to beat. Her people would not wait. They would come for him, for Nyx, for all of it. Kayla now had one foot in two worlds, and soon she would have to choose. Kayla didn't sleep that night. She sat near Ilias's fire, her back straight, her hands resting on her knees. Nyx lay beside the human head, resting on its front paws, its glowing eyes half closed. The air was quiet, too quiet. The drums had stopped, but she knew what they meant. Her tribe was moving, preparing for war, and she was sitting with the enemy. But was he? She looked at Elias. He was injured, tired, skin scarred from burns and broken bones, but his eyes were calm. Number? Fear. No hatred, just quiet strength. She watched how he moved, how he used every part of his wrecked ship. Nothing wasted, nothing broken for long. Even Nyx, a creature once feared across the stars, now sat peacefully by his side. Not a weapon, but a student, a child. At sunrise, Elias handed her a cup made from melted metal. Inside, hot water mixed with crushed fruit leaves. Kayla sipped it slowly, then looked at him. Why did you raise it? She asked. Elias smiled faintly. Because it was scared. Alone. I've been both. She watched him stir the fire. Do you know what Nyx is? I know what it was, Elias said, but I also know what it can become. Kayla shook her head. The elders say it was made for war, created in secret, bred to destroy entire cities. Elias looked at Nyx. The creature raised its head, walked to him. He scratched its jaw, and yet, here it is, choosing peace. The words stayed with her. Choosing. That was the part her people would never understand. To them, Nyx could never be more than its past. But Kayla had seen something different. She had watched Nyx in silence for days. The way it protected the weak, how it waited for permission before attacking, how it trusted Elias without fear. That was no monster. That was a heart, and her own heart. It was starting to change. Back in the jungle, her tribe was in chaos. The war chief was furious. Kayla was missing. Scouts had returned with stories of her sitting with the human. One even claimed. She smiled at him. The elders were divided. Some called for war. Others feared the return of the ancient predator. But one voice silenced them all. The high shaman, old, blind, his face marked with deep scars from the last war against the Blackspawn. He raised his staff and spoke. If the princess has not returned by nightfall, he said, she will be cut from the bloodline. Kayla knew this would happen. She had broken sacred law, shared food with an outsider, touched a beast that should have been slain, but she didn't return. Instead, she watched Elias build a new trap near the edge of the camp. Not for killing, for protecting. Nyx helped, carrying logs and placing stones where Elias pointed. They moved like a team, not master and servant, but equals. Kayla stepped beside Elias. They will come for you tonight. Elias didn't look up. I know. And if they kill you? She asked. He paused, then looked at her. Then I'll die knowing I raised something good. That night, as the moons rose, Kayla made her choice. She walked to the center of Elias's camp, removed the bone charm from around her neck, and placed it in the fire. The flames cracked. I am no longer a princess, she said. Elias stood still. Nyx tilted its head. My people will hunt me, she said, but I will not fight for their fear. I will fight for something better. Elias took a breath. What are you saying? She turned to him. I will stand by your side. Her voice shook, but she didn't look away. I will help protect Nyx, and you. For a moment, the firelight danced between them. Two souls from different worlds, bound by something fragile and powerful. Then, in the distance, a howl, a signal that the tribe was coming. Elias looked at Kayla. Then we hold the line. She nodded once, and Nick stood tall between them, its body glowing with energy, its breath slow, controlled. It knew the time had come. Far beyond the trees, the warriors marched. They carried flame, blades rage, but none of them knew that what waited for them in the jungle was not just a monster. It was a beast, raised with love, a human who had lost everything, and a princess who had just chosen the impossible. Not war, not peace, but hope. As the first warrior stepped into the clearing, Nyx moved forward, silent, ready. Kayla gripped her spear. Elias lit the trapline, and the night held its breath. Flames danced through the trees. Sparks crackled in the air. And the jungle, once alive with whispers, now roared with war. Elias stood at the edge of his camp, one hand gripping a broken spear. The other held a pulse beacon that no longer worked. Beside him, Kayla breathed deeply. Her blade gleamed with fresh sap. Eyes locked forward, and in front of them stood Nyx, tall, silent, glowing, its tail still, its claws drawn but not raised. The creature had grown, no longer just a pet, not even a protector. Now it was something else, something the world had never seen before, a symbol of what could happen when love was stronger than fear. The first wave came fast. 3 warriors charged through the smoke, spears raised, eyes wild. Nyx moved like lightning. It didn't strike to kill. It spun, disarmed, shoved, but one fell back. One dropped his weapon. The third landed hard and did not rise. Voice rang out. Stop. They are not enemies. We do not kill unless we must. But the warriors didn't listen. They had been told the princess was lost, corrupted, controlled by the black spawn. They believed she was a traitor, and Elias, he was just the outsider. The cause of it all, Kaela fought with precision. Not to hurt, but to stop them, to slow them down. She moved like water, her strikes clean, her footwork perfect, but for every warrior she brought down, more came. The fire was closing in now. Smoke burned their lungs, and Elias, wounded from before, too slow, he stumbled, fell to one knee. Blood soaked through his shirt again. Kayla turned just in time to block a blade aimed at his back. She cried out, driving the attacker away, then dropped to her knees beside Elias. No, no, stay awake. Elias coughed, smiled through the pain. I'm fine, just need a nap. Don't joke, she said, voice cracking. This world already tried to kill you once. Nyx roared. It stood between them and the next wave, muscles tight, eyes burning. But something was wrong. It was hesitating, not from fear, but confusion. Elias had always told it to protect, not destroy, to defend, never strike first. But now, Elias was bleeding, Kayla was crying, and the tribe would not stop. Nyx growled low. The sound rolled like thunder. Then it stepped forward. Its form shimmered. A new energy pulsed from its chest. It spread its arms wide and let out a roar that shook the trees. The warriors stopped. Even Kayla froze. Nyx did not attack. Instead, it did something no one expected. It spoke, not in full words, but in sound, a blend of growl, pulse, and echo. And every warrior heard the message. No more. Back in the jungle's heart, the high shaman felt it. He rose from his mat, eyes blind, heart racing. The beast has awakened, he whispered, but not as a destroyer, as a soul. Kayla lifted Elias onto her shoulder. He winced, but nodded. We fall back, deeper into the forest, she said. Nyx led the way, moving through fire like a shadow. Every tree bent in its path, Even the animals fled. Not in fear, but in respect. They reached a hidden glade, a place sacred to the old tribes. A place Kayla remembered from childhood stories, where warriors once asked the spirits for answers. Now, she asked for something else. She laid Elias down and knelt beside him. Her hands trembled as she cleaned his wound. He was pale, breathing shallow. "Please," she whispered, "to whatever gods, listen. Don't take him." She had stood in battle, had faced death, but now, facing the loss of him, she felt weak for the first time, and in that weakness, she found her truth. She loved him, not because he saved her, not because he was brave, but because he saw her, not as a princess, not as a tool, just Kayla. Nyx lowered its head beside Ilias's chest. A soft hum echoed from its body, a pulse, a rhythm. It was syncing with him, trying to stabilize his heart. Kayla placed her hand on the creature's back. "You're more than they said you were," she whispered. "You're not a weapon, you're a miracle." Night fell. The jungle quieted. Elias stirred. His voice was weak. "Still here." Kayla smiled through tears. "Still here." Nyx let out a low chirp, relieved. Elias looked up at Kayla. "Did we win?" Kayla shook her head. "No, but we changed something. And, for now, that was enough." Back at the tribe's stronghold, the high shaman carved a new symbol into the stone wall. A human, a beast, and a woman standing between both. He turned to the elders and said, "The old stories are broken. It's time to write new ones." The glade stayed silent. The moon hung low, casting silver light across the sleeping jungle. Elias lay still, his chest rising, slowly, but with effort. Kayla had done all she could. She used old tribal herbs, crushed roots between stones, wrapped his side in leaves soaked in cooling sap. But still, the fever burned. She sat beside him, eyes fixed on his face. Every breath he took, she counted. Every pause, her heart stopped. She had stood in the fire of war, faced blades and beasts. But, now, she was afraid, because she couldn't fight what was inside him. The damage, the weakness of a human body, and the risk he took choosing to protect a creature like Nyx might now cost him his life. Nyx curled beside Elias. Its body glowed faintly, each pulse in sync with his heartbeat. It didn't move, didn't sleep, only watched, only waited. It had no words, but it understood. Elias had never asked Nyx to fight for him, never forced, never commanded. He only gave food, shelter, and something more, love. The next morning, Elias woke. His voice was hoarse, weak, but alive. Kayla dropped her blade and knelt at his side. "You're awake." He blinked, smiling faintly. "Told you I just needed a nap." She laughed, but tears fell at the same time. "You almost didn't wake up, you fool." He reached for her hand. "Did we make it?" She nodded. For now. He looked at Nyx, who raised its head and let out a soft trill. Elias reached up and touched the creature's jaw. "You stayed." Nyx leaned in gently, its eyes bright. It had not left his side in 2 days. Later that afternoon, Elias sat against a tree, still weak but breathing steady. Kayla brought him wild fruit, crushed and mixed with honey water. As he ate, she watched him, then asked the question that had burned in her chest for days. "Why?" Elias looked up. "Why? What? Why did you save Nyx? Why risk your life? You could have left it in the forest that night." He looked at her, his voice soft. "Because it was alone." Kayla's eyes narrowed. "Many things are alone. That doesn't mean they deserve saving." Elias shook his head slowly. "No, but that night, when I found Nyx, I saw myself." He looked at the jungle around them. "This world didn't want me. I crashed. I bled. I should have died. But somehow, I lived." He paused. "And when I saw Nyx Gold shaking, starving, I didn't see a monster. I saw a chance, to protect something, to matter again. Kayla didn't speak. She sat beside him. I was born into duty, she said, to fight, to lead, to obey. I thought emotions were weakness, but now, she looked at him, at you, and Nyx. She touched his hand. Maybe being human isn't about strength. Maybe it's about choosing who we protect. That night, the stars returned. Elias slept with Kayla beside him. Nyx lay across the edge of the camp, its eyes open, watching the trees. Then, the silence broke. From the distance the sound of horns, deep, hollow, ancient, the call of the high shaman. Kayla stood instantly. She knew what it meant. It's not an attack, she whispered. It's a summons. Elias rubbed his eyes. To what? Kayla looked at the sky. To judgment. At the tribe's sacred gathering ground, the fire pit had already been lit. Elders stood in a circle, warriors in rows. The high shaman sat on a raised stone, staff in hand. He called Kayla forward, then Elias, then Nyx. Gasps rose. Some warriors stepped back, but the high shaman raised a hand. No more blood, not until the truth is known. He pointed to Elias. Speak, outsider. Tell us why the beast walks with you, not over you. Elias stood, though it hurt. He faced the tribe, their eyes full of fear, of hate, but also curiosity. He spoke clearly. No one chooses where they're born, not me, not Nyx, but we choose who we become. He turned to Nyx. I didn't make it a weapon, I gave it a home. Then, to the tribe. Your fear keeps you in chains, but your future could begin tonight, if you're brave enough. Silence followed. Then, Kayla stepped forward. I stand with him. She dropped her ceremonial blade. I give up my title, my crown, everything. A pause, because I have learned what it means to love something, not because of what it can do, but because of what it chooses to be. The high shaman looked at them, then turned to Nyx. He leaned forward, eyes closed, hand outstretched. Nyx stepped closer. Its claws scraped against stone. The tribe held their breath, and then Nyx lowered its head. Let the old man touch it. A deep breath passed through the elders. The high shaman opened his eyes. Tears clung to his lashes. The stories were wrong, he said, and with those words, the future changed. Back in the jungle's darkest edge, something old awakens. Another creature, larger, meaner, one not raised by kindness, but by rage, and it's coming. The tribe had chosen silence. After Elias's words, after Kellis' stand, after Nyx bowed to the high shaman. No one spoke for a long time. The fire cracked in the center of the circle. The stars above held their breath. Then, the war chief stepped forward. Face hard, eyes cold. Kella's cousin. You ask us to accept this beast, he growled. You ask us to trust a human who fell from the sky. He drew his blade and pointed it at Elias. Then let him prove it. The elders murmured. The high shaman nodded slowly. Trial by fire, he said. Our oldest law. Kayla gasped. No, he's not one of us. That law wasn't made for him, the shaman replied. It wasn't made for the past. It's for the future. Later, in the stone ring deep within the forest, the tribe gathered. Torches lit the night. Drums pounded. The trees echoed with ancient chants. Elias stood at the center, breathing slow, still healing from his wounds, but he didn't back down. Kayla stood at the edge of the ring, her fists clenched. Why are you doing this? She asked. You don't have to prove anything. Elias looked at her, calm. I do not for them, for us. He turned to Nyx. You stay. Do not fight unless I fall. Understand? Nyx let out a low, uncertain growl, but it obeyed, because it trusted him. From the far gate, the sound of chains echoed. The earth trembled. The trees swayed, and then it appeared, A creature massive, muscled, covered in bone-plated armor, fangs the size of daggers, eyes burning with mindless fury. It was called the Reaver, an ancient beast, bred for blood, caged for generations, now unleashed for one purpose: trial. Even Kaler had never seen it awake. Few had, but tonight, Elias would face it alone. The gate dropped, the Reaver roared. Elias didn't move. He waited. The crowd leaned forward. The beast charged, but just before it struck, Elias dove, rolled, grabbed a spear from the ground. He struck not to kill but to stun, hit the side, then leaped back. The crowd gasped. Kaela, single quotes S. heart pounded. He wasn't fighting like a warrior. He was thinking, moving, reading the creature like he had trained with Nyx, with patience, with strategy. But the Reaver didn't slow. It slammed its tail, knocking Elias hard against the stone wall. Blood on his lips, his arm twisted, breathing ragged. Kayla screamed, "Let me in. He'll die." The guards held her back. Elias pulled himself up and said, just 2 words, "Not yet." The Reaver lunged again. This time, Elias didn't run. He stood, eyes locked on the beast, and just before it struck, he did something no one expected. He dropped his weapon, opened his arms, and shouted, "Stop." For a moment, everything froze, even the Reaver. It stood inches from his face, snarling, shaking, but not striking. Elias looked into its eyes. "I know what they did to you," he whispered. "I know what you were made for." His voice trembled. "But you don't have to be that." A pause. "You have a choice." High above, the high shaman stood, eyes wide. Kayla covered her mouth, tears falling. And Nyx. Nyx stepped forward, silent, then let out a sound, not a roar, but a soft, low hum, a message, a memory, a song Elias had taught it, a sound of peace. The Reaver blinked, took 1 step back, then another, then turned, and walked away. The crowd was silent, no cheers, no cries, only awe. The high shaman raised his hand. "The trial is complete." He looked down at Elias, bloodied, bruised but standing, and the human has passed. Kayla ran to Elias, held him up, pressed her forehead to his. "You're insane," she whispered. He smiled, weakly. "You keep saying that." She touched his face. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," he whispered. "I'm too stubborn." That night, the drums played a different rhythm, not of war, but of change. For the first time in centuries, a human walked freely among the tribe. A beast stood without chains, and a princess chose a path that had never existed before, but deep below the mountains. Inside ancient stone halls, long forgotten, others were watching. They had heard the song of peace. They had felt the moment the Reaver turned, and they were afraid, not of the beast, but of the human, who taught it mercy. The air in the valley had shifted. Smoke no longer curled into the sky. The war drums had fallen silent. The jungle, once filled with fear, now breathed slowly, calmly. But peace is never quiet for long, not on a planet where history is built on scars, and blood once watered the roots of the strongest trees. Elias sat near the edge of a cliff, looking out over the vast green below. His wounds had begun to heal, but his heart still carried the weight of everything they had survived. Kayla sat beside him. Her hand rested in his, fingers scarred from years of battle, now soft in his palm. Below them, Nyx played in the stream. Its once sharp glow had softened. It laughed not with sound, but with movement, like it was free, truly free, for the first time. "I should be afraid," Elias whispered. Kayla turned. "Why?" "Because this doesn't feel real." He looked at her. "You, Nyx, the tribe, after everything, This feels like a dream." Kayla leaned her head on his shoulder. "Then let's not wake up." Later that day, The tribe gathered once more, not for judgment, not for trial, but for choice. The elders stood around a sacred fire. The high shaman raised his staff. For generations, we feared the black spawn. We feared humans. We feared each other. He turned to Elias. But this man reminded us of something. We forgot that fear can be taught, but so can compassion. He looked at Kayla, at our princess, who chose to see not with her eyes, but with her heart. And then, to Nyx, at the beast, who was shaped by war, but refused to become it. The shaman lowered his staff. We offer a choice. Stay with us, lead with us, or go, and carry your story to the stars. Elias looked at Kayla. She said nothing, because the answer was already in her eyes. They stayed, but not as rulers, not as warriors, not even as symbols. They became teachers. Elias built tools from wreckage, clean water systems, energy from the sun. He taught the children how to fix broken things. Kayla rewrote old warrior songs, turned chants of war into lessons of unity. She trained new guards not to conquer, but to protect. And Nyx became a legend, not for the battles it won, but for the ones it chose not to fight. Years passed, other tribes came, at first with fear, then with questions, then with hope. They saw the beast and the human and the princess, and realized this was not weakness. This was something far stronger. Love, trust, legacy. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Elias stood before a group of children, Kayla at his side. Nyx curled behind them like a silent guardian. He pointed to the stars. Out there, he said, there are billions of stories, some loud, some full of war. But here, we wrote one they'll never forget. Kayla smiled, and it all began with a crash, a cry, and a choice. As night fell, the jungle glowed under the moons, and deep within the trees, carved into stone, were new symbols, a human, a beast, a woman standing between both. Not a warning, not a legend, a promise, that one day, when the stars call again, and fear rises once more, someone will remember what it means to be human, and what it means to choose love, even when the world tells you not to.